Wrestling with the Future Radio Network proudly presents the Refs Roundtable. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Joined as I am each and every week by Amelia, Mad Dog.
Hello.
Hey, no, kid.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How you doing? We had a little incident tonight, didn't we?
Yes.
We're here. Thank you, God. We're here. Holy shit. Oh man. Tonight, very interesting topic. Actually, you like I do in a lot of things, I have to blame Mike Messier for this one.
Well, I got to know the guys, so hey, I'm happy.
Good. There you go. Beautiful. Tonight, the role of the wrestling referee and to walk us through this muck and mire, let me introduce the table. And he knows where I'm going. The old Joey knows where I'm going with this shit. First of all, let me introduce my friend, probably the guy I've known longest here. His name is Mike Messier. He is an actor, director, writer, producer. He's the guy who can actually say, and this is the truth, he was the very first guest this show ever had. When
Yay.
Jeff the Ref Robinson and I were just mere pups in the podcast game, Mike Messier was the first guy that we actually had. And believe Mikey, you did that interview with us from a hotel room. You were on the road somewhere. You're muted, Mikey.
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that.
There you go, Mike.
Yeah, I was in the process of moving. I was in the process of moving from Rhode Island to Florida at the time, and I pulled over at a hotel in South Carolina to do that interview with you guys. It
He
was a lot
sure
of fun.
did. Yeah, he sure did. And I'll tell you what, it was a hell of an interview, too. You got Jeff riled up that night. You remember that? You have to know that
Jeff and I
Jeff the Ref, rest his soul, was a tried and true and staunch to his core WWE purist. And if you know anything about Mikey Messier, he certainly is not.
Yeah, well, I used to be. At one time I was, but it soured on me. But the funny thing, Angelo, and this one is that unfortunately the night that Jeff passed away, I believe it was February 28th, 2020. I was actually at an NXT show in Florida.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was kind of Jeff's final rib on me, is that he got me to go to an NXT show the night that he passed on. But Jeff was a great guy.
The rib, Mikey, is on both of us because he actually passed on February 29th. It was a leap year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And his mother, I spoke to his mother a few days after his passing, and she said, leave it to Jeff to even die on an unusual day. And that was that's a direct quote from his mom. But his mother, God bless her, she was his mother was a faithful, God-fearing woman. She worked for the 700 Club for Pat Robertson.
Wow.
Can't make this stuff up. Joining us also is Joey Lynn. Joey is a referee of 25 years. Joey has worked for the independent circuit largely, and OIAW Championship and Chaotic Kingdom and Ozark Mountain Wrestling, among just a few of the probably 50 or 60 promotions he's worked for. He is a veteran of the ring for some 25 years, and a guy, as we were talking before we went on the air, a guy who has more than paid his dues, I think, and we're going to discuss a little bit tonight. And, of course, Amelia Valerio Chapman. She is my co-host, my partner in crime. We call her the Mad Chick, the Mad Dog. We call her Living La Vida Loca. We call her Firecracker. What else do we call you?
As long as you don't call me late for dinner, hey.
Hey.
You know that one, right?
Yeah.
Here's what kind of got me started. And it's no secret, I don't watch a lot of wrestling anymore because I just honestly, I can't stomach the product. And when I do watch, it's largely either AEW or a larger independent, like
Mhm.
Ring of Honor, something like that. I'm going to open this up by showing you something from Mr. Mike Messier. I want you to take a look at this film clip.
Mike Messier. So now we're going to talk about referees. Nick Patrick, in my book, could not be a great classic referee, even though he was involved in many great classic angles and big matches in WCW. I believe, I could be wrong, that Nick Patrick had some WWE time on SmackDown once the acquisition took place. I could be wrong, but I'm having a memory. If I'm wrong, I forgive my goddamn self. But I think that Nick Patrick's problem, and I've said this to a good friend of mine, Nick Patrick was too tall. He was too big, he was too tall. The only time that Nick Patrick, to me, was effective as a referee was when he was refereeing cruiserweights, because then this big kind of goofy guy, Nick Patrick, who was good at his job technically, he re-emphasized the smallness in size-wise of the smaller wrestlers. A Rey Mysterio and Psychosis with a Nick Patrick as a ref is pretty good, although Psychosis was pretty big for a cruiserweight. But basically you get my idea, which was Nick Patrick was too big for a referee. Who's the greatest referee of all time? Tommy Young, period, end of story.
With that, led to kind of a synchronicity of minds. I had no idea, quite frankly, that Mikey had done a rant on refs. But am I surprised? No, because Mikey does rants on a lot of things that often synchronize with my thought process anyway. It's interesting, Mikey. The first thing, and we're going to hit it right out of the chute. The first thing you said, Nick Patrick is too big to be a ref. We should point out something, Mikey. Nick Patrick's father is Jody Hamilton, one half of the Assassins.
That's right.
That's first thing we need to point out. Second thing we need to point out is Nick Patrick was a wrestler for 4 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that because he's so known as a referee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He is a big man. If you've ever stood next to him, you know this. He's a very big guy. Was he effective as a referee, Mikey, in your opinion?
I think I stand by what I said in that video. You know, I think for technically he was great. I mean, he knew his job. It was just, you're born into the body you're born into. And he was a big guy. And if he's refereeing Sting versus Hogan, which he did at Starrcade 97, he's bigger than Sting. You know, like I think he's taller than Sting. Sting's supposed to be going for the world title. And so I stand by everything I said. I think to referee a great thing was great. Here's another thing. I want to, you know, when referees do like a heel referee angle and then they go back to being a referee, I don't like that because I feel
with
like
you, brother.
Yeah, so he did that with the Pro. You know what I mean? So I have no ill will towards Nick Patrick. Trust me, I've never met the guy. And like I said, technically he was great. He knew his job. He knew wrestling. I'm sure he was very dedicated. I just feel that the body he was built with, maybe he should have done wrestling full time as a wrestler. Maybe, you know, but that's just my opinion.
But the guy you say was the best of all time is the man right in front of us, and his name is Tommy Young. Arguably, I think Joey Lynn would certainly second that emotion.
I will definitely second that.
So let me ask you, Joey, you're a ref. You are a 25-year veteran ref. What is it about Tommy Young that makes him the quintessential referee?
He's very down the middle. Okay, there's no give and there's no take. Okay. Tommy was on. He was one of the guys that is not only a worker, but he's also a referee.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Here's the reason why I say that. Because if a referee who truly wants to be in this business and have an impact anytime in this business will pay attention to every match that he's associated with.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a reason for that. Okay, that reason is to let these guys know if they get lost where they're at next.
Yeah.
That reason is also in case somebody gets hurt. You're there to make sure everything is taken care of, whether it be with the next, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Okay, Tommy Young's that guy. Okay.
You said
Period.
something very interesting, Joey. You said something very, very interesting, and I don't know if everybody caught it. I certainly did.
Mhm.
You said not only is he a great referee because he's down the middle, he's also a great worker.
Yes.
And I do not want that to go by the wayside. I want to explore that.
Yes.
Mikey, you and I have always been of the mindset, and I think it's no secret. If anybody watches the show, they know this, that the referee is as integral a part of the match as the wrestlers. Clearly. Okay.
Clearly. Yes.
There are certain referees who stand out heads and shoulders above the rest of their peers. Tommy Young is one of those guys.
Yes.
Mike Chioda is another one of those guys. A guy who refereed that actually doesn't live but 5 minutes from me. Jim Molyneux, former ECW, WWE, WWF referee, Jim Molyneux. And these guys, they have a certain persona. They have a certain look. Jim Molyneux's case, he's a little overweight. In John Finnegan's case, he's a guy who doesn't look like he belongs there, but he knows his job exceedingly well. Mike Chioda is a small guy in stature, on the thinner side, and he makes the guys in the ring look ginormous next to him. It's interesting. That's going to come up in here. So, Joey, you've been around a long time in this business. I want to hit you with some of these standard ref questions. Referees, work or shoot?
Work.
Okay. When does it become shoot for you?
When the blood starts pouring and you actually see some knuckles going to the face, yeah, that becomes a shoot. That's when you need to get involved.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Glad you said that because we're going to read some stuff tonight. Amelia,
Yes.
you've been very quiet so far because I haven't come to you yet, but I am now.
Did he not say to not interrupt him? Did he not say that?
You brought something up to me that I think is going to be very interesting to Joey and very interesting to Mikey.
Mhm.
Now, let me segue into this by saying that Amelia is from Texas,
Yes.
and the first referee who made an impression on her, and you and I talked about it, so it's no secret. The first referee that made an impression on her was Bronco Lubitsch.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you guys, both of you guys know who I'm talking about. Tell everybody what was it about Bronco Lubitsch that made you hate him so much?
Well, it's not really that made me hate him that much. It's just that whenever he came out, everybody, even the wrestlers were like, oh my God, this guy's going to be the referee. Oh dear, we're going to be here forever. He is going to take forever to count. Oh my God, why do we have to have this referee? Even the fans were like, oh my God, this referee really? Because like you said, he was bigger and slower. I understand. Everybody was like, oh my God, this referee. But that happens,
Yeah.
But that's his character. That was his character he was going to play. And of course, that's what everybody was like. Yes, everybody, they knew that's what he was going to be in the ring.
But
And
it's funny though, because when you and I spoke about that the other night, and by the way, this conversation took place off camera.
yes, I
which
remember.
was even more interesting.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what prompted the show about referees. I said we need to do a show about referees.
Yeah, we did.
And then, as synchronicity would have it, Mike Messier's video popped up by way of my inbox, and
Yes.
and Mikey shared that video. Very interesting that everything kind of worked together. I
Mhm.
want to tell everybody, and this is what we got to kind of talk about this.
Mhm.
And I want you guys to take a look at it. In professional wrestling, a referee is an authority figure present in or near the ring during matches. The referee's purpose is similar to that of referees in combat sports such as boxing or mixed martial arts. That is the arbitrator of the rules the
Mhm.
person charged with rendering decisions.
Mhm.
In reality, to getting to what Joey and Mikey were saying, the referee is in reality like the wrestlers, a participant in
Yes.
executing a match in accordance with the script, if there's a script, including its predetermined outcome. And we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that because that's been the source of a lot of controversy, Mike Messier. This
Yes.
idea that the outcomes are predetermined,
Mhm.
that wrestling is somehow choreographed and fake. We're going to talk about what's real and what's not, and is responsible for controlling the flow of the match. Joey, we're going to talk about that, and for relaying information or instructions from the backstage official to the wrestlers. Like wrestlers, referees are also responsible for maintaining kayfabe. Okay,
Mhm.
that's why I asked you about work and shoot, and must render decisions in accordance with the promotion's kayfabe rules. So let's talk about this. Very, very interesting. They used the word kayfabe a couple times. Mike
Mhm.
Messier.
Yes.
We very often associate kayfabe and the idiosyncrasies, if you will, of kayfabe with wrestlers and promoters. We don't normally associate kayfabe with referees because they are, even in a work environment, they're considered the odd man out, the if you will, the middle of the, and
Mhm.
Joey's giving it the applause,
Mhm.
but they are
Yeah.
the odd man out for
Mhm.
all intents and purposes.
Right.
Why is it that we don't consider that element of kayfabe, Mike Messier?
I think overall, the WWE, in my opinion, has been guilty for maybe 15 years of downplaying and diminishing the authority of the referee figure. And one trend, I'm not sure if this answers your question, but the earpiece, I forgot the name of the earpiece that goes to from Vince in the dressing room or the locker room
Yeah,
or the backstage gorilla position, whatever you want to call it, to the referee.
yeah,
I think once you strip the referee of actually taking control of the match, and if there's some type of instruction, you send out your ring attendant or your ring announcer from the
Mhm.
back of the,
yeah,
backstage down the aisle and give the referee
yeah,
the mulligan or the one side, whatever you call it. But my point
yeah,
is just the humanity being stripped because of those earpieces. And I understand it's because of television production and so forth. But guess what? In the 80s and 90s, they were doing a lot of TV wrestling as well,
Yes.
pay-per-views and everything. And you didn't need all that
No.
equipment. And the humanity is stripped. What I've heard, and I could be wrong, but I've heard that the WWE instructs their referees to call things like a shoot. If they're calling the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on
yeah,
the rope, and the wrestler continues the chokehold or the hold on the ropes,
yeah.
apparently the referees are instructed to call for the bell. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, I've heard that several times.
Well, we're going to see
To
an
me,
example of that tonight.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're going to see an
Yeah,
example
you
of that.
mentioned Bronco
Mikey.
Lubitsch. I wrote down some.
Oh,
There's so many.
That's funny.
That's awesome, dude. That's
That's
awesome.
funny.
Joey Lynn, referee.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Referee Joey Lynn. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this. You're the guy. In many ways, you're the focus of the show, really,
Yes.
because you're the guy in the middle. You're the third guy in the ring.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
You've got two workers, and then you've got the referee. You can't have a match without you.
Yes.
That's
In
true.
some ways, you're the most important part of the match.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, and I asked you a question a little while ago about work and shoot. So here's I guess is the real question. How do you work, quote unquote, work a match effectively enough that people don't believe you're a part of the match? You
see
have
this-
probably the most difficult job because you've got to make it seem like you're down the middle when you know and they know you're in on it.
Mhm.
You're in on the plan here.
All right. So everybody sees the little earpiece right here,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Take that
Uh-huh.
son of a bitch out. Take it
Uh-huh.
out. Okay.
Okay.
Now control the match. Now you're gonna know the difference between a work and a shoot.
Okay.
Okay.
It's going to be real evident to you what a work
Mhm.
is and what a shoot is. Okay, it's kind of like
Interesting.
when you walk into a dressing room
Yes, sir.
and you reach and grab a wrestler's hand and you're like, "Hey, man, I'm so and so. How you doing?"
Mhm.
A lot of guys do not even pick up on it that I check their handshake to see how they're going to work that night.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea,
If you
what
shake light with
Joey's
me, I know
talking
you're a
about-
light worker.
Yeah, well, let me tell everybody what you're talking about, Joey. The idea that if you grab someone's hand and you have a very loose, limber shake, the transition is that you work loose in the ring. Now, I had the opportunity to shake hands with a lot of guys. Okay, a guy who straight up and he worked the way he looked. Don Morocco.
Oh my!
This
Mhm.
man had a hand that looked like a baseball mitt. Okay, he's a big man, big guy. Even now, he's still a big guy, and still in shape, by the way. But when Don Morocco grabs your hand, he engulfs your hand.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it's hard to tell if he's working or shooting with you, but because he's such a big guy.
Yep.
But let me tell you something. When he grabbed a hold of my hand, brother, I know he meant business when he goes to work.
Right.
Okay. On the other hand, the guy, a big guy, a guy that you think could rip your freaking head off, Randy Macho Man Savage,
Mhm.
shook my hands like a feather.
Yeah.
He
He's a light
and-
worker.
Yeah, I hung out with him and Lanny and Elizabeth at backstage at the Philadelphia Spectrum for probably 2 hours. And just the nicest, sweet guy, too, by the way. Rest in peace, Randy Macho Man.
Yes, most definitely.
But you've been around a long time, so and I need to know from you, from a guy that's been there. You're in a ring. The situation calls for you to get physical. And no one wants to ever see a referee get physical. I think that's fair enough to say, right?
Right.
But sometimes you've got to get physical. You've got to put yourself, for lack of a better word, in harm's way, right?
Mhm.
How do you do that as A, part of a show, B, protect yourself, C, protect your workers there, and most importantly, convey to your promoter that you're in charge of the trouble that's about to ensue?
Let's
Because I
see.
know you've had a situation like that, and that's why I'm asking you
Yes.
about it.
Let's see. So let's start with work. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All of professional wrestling is work.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, it is no denying that. Okay. There's and Amelia will understand when I say this Texas strong style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the difference in the work and the strong style is how you figure you're putting yourself into a match.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
So you've got, like we talked about with the handshake, right? So you have your light workers, you have your stiff workers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you determine how you're going to help coordinate this match. Okay. If you're working in Texas, like I do a lot, it's
Mhm.
strong style.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
think I'm not going to get involved in this match.
Oh yes.
I'm going to make sure you're on point.
Yes.
Every bit of it, because the
Mhm.
fans in Texas mess up one time and find out how they're going to trash you.
Oh yeah.
I heard.
Okay.
Mhm. My
It
grandmother, yes, my grandmother is a testimony to that. Oh yeah.
Yes.
She
It
did.
happens.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Good, Amelia.
Oh well, my grandmother, when Ricky Romero was wrestling back in the day, we used to, of course, sit way up on top, and she would come to the wrestling matches with Ricky Romero. And before we knew it, we're just like, "Where's my grandmother at? Where's my?" She was down in the bottom of ringside yelling at the referee. Can you not see what he's doing to Ricky Romero? Hello, open your eyes. Hello, do I have to go in there and be the referee? Hello, do your job. Hello. And she was getting in with the referee. She was getting at it with him. And I was like, oh my God,
I'm
this is my
sure.
grandmother. And she was like almost in the ring. We had to like pull her back. And the referee's like, you better pull her back. You better pull her back. It's like, hey, that's my grandmother. I'm disrespect. You better deal with the match. You
Amelia
better
and
deal with
I,
that, you know.
Amelia and
Yes.
I have a thing we do on the show here called Show and Tell. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm going to show you a little slideshow here, and we're We're going to take a look and we're going to talk about him.
Mhm.
So take a look at this. Let me get rid of this here for just a second.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. We're talking about the role of the ref.
Mhm.
There's several things happening here that never happened before. You
Mhm.
see wrestlers becoming referees. Mike Messier, when did that become a thing where a wrestler would be, invoked as the ref, the third guy in the ring? And can a wrestler be
The
truly
earliest,
down the middle?
well, the earliest recollections I have, Angelo, is I believe both Gorilla Monsoon, maybe in the late
Mhm.
70s, 80s, did some refereeing. And I remember my very young child, Sweet Hansen, who was kind of, the fans took a liking to Big Sweet Hansen, and they started making Sweet Hansen a special guest referee for some matches, and usually involving Magnificent Morocco as the Intercontinental Champion against, Rocky Johnson, let's say. And they kind of introduced the special ref as the referee wrestler as a ref thing, just to kind of push feuds. And typically it was kind of a way to get like Steve Hansen a match with Don Morocco himself, is that he would obviously be biased against Morocco and disqualify him. And then the next, because this was the house show era, you'd come back and you'd have, okay, Don Morocco is going to wrestle Swede Hansen now because Swede was the referee that disqualified him, and now they're going to have a match. That's what I remember. What you saw there, the Bret Hart Shawn Michaels picture, I think that's from SummerSlam '97.
It is.
Shawn was, Heart and Soul pay-per-view, SummerSlam, when Bret lost the title to The Undertaker, and they basically used that as a way to further the Shawn Michaels Undertaker feud, because Shawn swung a chair at Bret, and Bret missed, and he hit Undertaker. So I'm not opposed to, can a wrestler be down the middle? The answer is probably not, but it's usually a storyline purpose that they're doing a guest wrestler as a ref. It's usually to advance a feud between that wrestler as ref and one of the two participants.
Joey Lynn, is that concept viable in wrestling?
Very, very.
Does it?
Very viable.
Is it still viable now in a day where kayfabe doesn't exist and everybody kind of knows what's behind the curtain?
Now you hear the word special enforcer.
Okay.
Now you hear the word special enforcer. Okay, so we're going to take a Stone Cold, and he's going to be the special enforcer to this match. Okay, we don't need Mike Chioda. We don't need anybody else. We want him to be the guy to control this match, because these two guys are going to go out here, going to try to beat the hell out of each other. They don't care who's going to get in the way. Okay, so you got to have somebody that's able to withstand the pressure, so to speak. Okay,
interesting.
To handle the biz.
Mike Messier, what do you know about the gentleman on your screen right now?
That's Charles Robinson, and he made my list tonight too as another guy. Great referee, but once again, he did the Baby Nate thing, showing bias towards Ric Flair and I think 99 WCW, and then he tries to go back and be a regular referee. It's amazing. Maybe I take things too seriously, but I just don't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mikey, thank you for bringing that up. A lot of people have turned a blind eye to that, those that know about it. More importantly, there are a lot of people that don't know about that. That Charles Robinson, who by all accounts is a hell of a referee, and about as big as I am, quite frankly, he's about 5'4", 5'5". He's not a big guy at all. And he's very thin, quite frankly. But he played the role of Baby Nate, or Little Nate in WCW back in the day. And a lot of people, I forgot. Hold on. Here we go.
Oops.
But he played this character associated with the Ric Flair. Here's an interesting kind of guy. Now, Mike, I know you got some interesting opinions on this gentleman here.
You know, the Hebners are good referees. They're most famously known the Dave Earl Hebner, you know, twin identical referees, or they were trying to say it was plastic surgery. Ted DiBiase, you know, paying one of the Hebners to get plastic surgery. And
Yeah.
even then, I mean, I'm telling you, I was a young wrestling fan, but I knew that the Hebners had both worked the Georgia and Mid Atlantic territories at the same time, so I knew what was going on when I saw that happen in live time. But a lot of people didn't, because a lot of fans. That's Dick Kroll, I believe, who's on my list.
That
of
is, in
legends.
fact, Dick Kroll, and I brought him up for my generation. Let me tell you about Dick Kroll. And thank you, Mikey, for recognizing and knowing who he is. A lot of people don't know who this man is, but he was the original heel ref. This was a guy, he was the original heel ref. Why do I say that? He's the guy who pulled the fast count on Bruno Sammartino that caused him to lose to Ivan Koloff in Madison Square Garden. That night, Bruno said he thought he went deaf because you could hear a pin drop. It was an interesting turn of events. Dick Kroll, however, made up for his dastardly ways and became one of the Alta. And this is the other brother, by the way, Mikey. That was Earl. This is Dave. This is Dave Hebner.
Right. Yep.
This is, you mentioned Gorilla Monsoon. This is his son, the late Joey Morella.
Yeah, he was great.
And you're going to see Gorilla shortly, too.
WrestleMania 3 referee.
Yeah. An interesting career move for a guy, because he was supposed to be a wrestler. Gorilla was training him to be a wrestler, and he chose to be a referee instead. Joey Lynn, good move, bad move? Do you think it affected? Did it affect him adversely? Would he be around longer?
That's hard to say. I mean, really, in a nutshell, that is hard to say. I don't think it affected him adversely that way. I mean, it could affect you. Don't get me twisted. It can affect you. Okay, down the road. Okay,
sure.
Because people are going to look at you. Well, you was this so and so, or you was this so and so, and I don't trust you, or you're not crap, or whatever the case may be. So down the road, yes, it could affect you. It can. That's the reason why I agree with Mr. Messier right here about your heel referees and your back and forth. Okay, it hurts you. It takes your credibility away.
Well, and in that perfect segue of timing, let's enter the fray with Dangerous Danny Davis. Mike Messier, your opinions on Danny Davis?
Well, it was at the time, February 1987. You know, he had a few little hints when Macho Man beat Tito Santana with a foreign object in, I believe, Boston Garden, if I get my memory right.
You are right.
Danny was the referee for that one, and then it wasn't until about 10 or 11 months later he was the referee when the Dynamite Kid got knocked out against the Hart Foundation with the megaphone from Jimmy Hart, and the Hart Foundation was able to get the tag belts over the Bulldogs on a Superstars of Wrestling, and that was the full-on heel switch for Danny Davis. He went to WrestleMania 3, and they didn't have a tag team title defense, but the Hart Foundation teamed up with Danny Davis, and they actually, I believe, they defeated the Bulldogs and Tito Santana. And so,
you're actually looking at a still from that match, Mikey, because it took place in Madison Square Garden, and Howard Finkel, old reliable, and there's Jimmy Hart. That was the match, and this is a still from it. Danny Davis was an interesting guy because he didn't look like he could do any damage, but he was a tough son of a bitch.
Yeah,
he legit. He's a tough guy.
He's
Mike
a nice
Chioda.
guy too. Yeah.
What do you know about Mike Chioda, Joey?
Mike Chioda is actually a guy that if I'm training another official in the ring, I don't train them as far as me. I kind of mocked, so to speak, and I kind of give that a blessing to Mike, but I kind of mocked him a little bit on his work style. and I try to train the future generation
Right.
off of that style, because Mike is so fluent in the ring. You're not going to find another referee now that could work like Mike did 5 years ago,
Yeah.
10 years ago. Okay. You just don't find them right now.
Mhm.
Now, I thought that Earl Hebner's son would been another one, because I thought his style kind of did somewhat in the same similarities as what Mike's did, but not quite so.
Yeah.
But as far as Mike Chioda, man, dude, from where I stand at as an official in the world of professional wrestling, you're not going to find a different guy out there that you could get more learning from just by watching him.
Absolutely.
Not
I agree with
not
you,
not
absolutely.
listening to anything he's got to say. You can watch him and learn a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amelia, what do you know about the gentleman on your screen right now?
I actually cannot remember his name, but I've seen his face. I'm better with faces than I am with names.
Tim White.
Tim White.
Tim White. Thank you.
It's interesting about Tim White. He's I call him the underdog of referees.
I do
Mhm.
too.
He's
Yes.
he's a guy that upon looking at him, you would think to yourself, he doesn't have it to be a ref. What
Mhm.
are his qualifications? He's short, he's fat,
Mhm.
he doesn't look like he belongs there. Again, very deceiving. Looks can be deceiving, but
Right.
he's a tough son of a bitch.
Mhm.
He enforced the rules.
Mhm.
He called it down the middle, but he had one more quality, Mike Messier, that you
He
and
owned the
I
first
know that our young pups here don't know. He was the guy responsible for Andre the Giant.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
People don't know that. That was
I didn't
Andre
know
the
that.
Giant's handler. Was Tim
Oh
White.
wow.
Andre's handler was that gentleman, Tim White.
Tim
I
also
did not
and-
know that.
Tim
That is
White
awesome.
Is still alive and still well, and he owns a bar in Boston, Mass.
It's actually Cumberland, Rhode Island, the Friendly Tap. I've
Oh,
been there.
Cumberland. Okay.
Okay.
Well, he
Cumberland,
did
Rhode
own a
Island.
bar. Here you go, and this is another example of a wrestler as a referee, Samoa Joe. Mikey, why is it a bad idea to put Samoa Joe in any kind of special enforcer or referee capacity?
Well, typically, because nine times out of 10 or 99 out of 100, Samoa Joe will be the toughest guy in the match. You know what I mean? He's
Exactly.
legitimate.
Mhm.
I don't know who else you would have in a match that Samoa Joe couldn't be tougher than. So what you're doing, unfortunately, is you're diminishing the actual wrestlers, the participants, by having the toughest guy in the ring be the referee. And, you know, like I said, the referee being used, the guest wrestler referee thing, it's okay, but it's just one of those things that's been done a lot too much, done too much in the last 20 years. There's also been times when they've had Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
WrestleMania,
Oh, God,
WrestleMania
sure.
14. But both times,
Absolutely.
Ali and Tyson were promoted as being the referee. But once you got to the actual show, we're going to use our regular referee to referee the match, and we're going to have Tyson and Ali as the enforcer ref, which I think both
outside the
times
ring,
they
sure.
announced until the actual show takes place. But to me, you know, it's kind of like ring announcer, you know, another job that's underappreciated, and it's, you can't just put, I guess you can, if you want, you can put anybody out there to be a ref or a ring announcer. But the reality is Tom Miller as a ring announcer for the War Games 87 resonates. Some of these ring announcers today don't resonate. And some referees, Tommy Young, Dick Kroll, Dick Worley, I wanted to mention, David Manning from World Class, and Rick Hazard. Those were the two good world class officials. Bronco was the slow one. Rick Hazard and David Manning were incredible.
Oh my God, yeah.
Bill Alfonso.
Well, if you're Von Erich.
Now go ahead, Amelia. I caught that. Go ahead.
David Manning was a good referee only if you were a Von Erich. Sorry.
Only to a Von Erich, she said.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
that's okay.
And Joey Lynn
Sorry,
think
not
Joey Lynn
sorry.
takes exception to that. I have two gentlemen on the screen, Charles Robinson and Vince
Mm.
McMahon. It is said, and I forget the expressions on their face.
Oh, look
But
at Vince.
it
Oh
is
dear.
said- It's priceless too, by the way. It
That
is
is
said
priceless. Look.
that Vince McMahon's favorite referee in WWE is Charles Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, Mike Messier, I'm not surprised by that.
Sure.
Somehow,
ref.
I'm not surprised by that.
He's a good ref. If he hadn't done the Baby Nate thing, I'd have no issue with him. But
Right.
Charles Robinson
Yeah.
technically is a
Now-
great ref. It's
Mikey, tell everybody about the young lady to the left on the screen here.
her first name is Jessica. I'm trying to remember her last name, but she was in NXT. She's very popular. I was going to mention that some of the female referees, they've got at least two in WWE NXT. She's one of them, Jessica. They've got Audrey Edwards is very popular referee in AEW.
Yeah.
The female referee thing, has got some lineage. Unfortunately, our buddy there, Vince, didn't get along very well, apparently, with, I think her name was Lisa Marie, the first WWF referee back in the 80s. There was some lawsuits and allegations about those two.
Yeah, sexual harassment is
Yes, that's what. Yep, exactly. I was going to say that.
sexual harassment. Now, there's
Mhm.
something very wrong when the owner of the company looks bigger than the guys working for him, okay? There's something
Sure.
very wrong with that. There's also something very wrong with the owner of the company acting as a referee in his own
Yep.
company. I have a problem with that too.
Yep.
But we have some breaking news. We have some breaking news from Jimmy Thunder
Hey.
from Down Under. Angelo, congratulations on getting the #1 wrestling podcast in New Zealand.
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you. I will give that one. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Here's one. I think referee Daniel Spencer is a good ref. In my opinion, he's a good guy as well. Okay. Daniel Spencer, who is he, guys?
I want to say he's the ball head one. There.
Oh. You know who he is? I know. Mikey. He works for Al Snow, Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Okay.
I know who he is now. I know who he is now.
Yeah, if he's working with Al Snow, he's got to be very fundamentally sound because Al Snow is a traditionalist.
Jimmy also says Charles Robinson apparently is a huge help backstage. He also helps set up the ring. Or maybe that's why Vince likes him so much.
I think that's the referee's job with the WWE. The referees are also the ring crew, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, are they also the ring attendant as well? Now,
I believe.
So Joey, in your organization, if you've worked for, oh God, I'm just going to put this back up on the screen. You've worked for SOAR, you've worked for the IPWR, Independent Pro Wrestling Association, Chaotic Kingdom, All Pro Championship, Ozark Mountain. You've been around, and you're a veteran of 25 years in the business. You've been around a long time. In your position, do you do just referee or do you coach? Like I know several referees who do coaching with workers, who take them on the side and tell them.
I do.
Give them
I
pointers.
do. I coach.
What else do you do
Fundamental
besides referee?
basics as far as pro wrestling. I also work with your basic fundamentals. I mean, I'm not a high flyer. Okay, I'm not the 5'9". I'm the perfect height for a referee. Okay, I don't fly around. When I bump myself, that might be a different story. Okay, so
explain that. I want to pull you back a minute. Explain to people what you mean by bump yourself.
Okay,
Tell everybody what we're talking about.
Okay, so I'm working a show at TFW in Tupelo, Mississippi. Me and Bruno Lauer had been talking for a little while, and I was like, "Hey, dude, come down and check this show out," because we were pulling in every Friday night. 350 people, and on Saturday it was 425 or higher. And he's like, "Man, I'll come on down." I said, "Bruno, you come down, I'll pay your gas. I'll get you a motel room, I'll pay your gas. I just want you to look at it." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll come in and check it out." So he comes in, And he's like, I like this guy, I like this guy, I like this guy.
Mhm.
He said, but this is what I want to know. He said, I want to know Joey. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, he said, I've asked a lot of officials this, and I can't seem to get one to even want to participate in it because I don't think they know what they're doing. I said, okay. He said, I want you to bump yourself. So,
Okay.
so in the main event, there was this guy named Judas. He's 6'7". I think he weighed right at 360, somewhere around in there.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a big boy. And then there was another guy, T.J. Wells from Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Yes.
6'1", right at 405 pounds.
Woo!
And so I'm like, okay, guys. So Bruno's asked me a question. He wants me to do a little something for him tonight. This is what I need you two to do.
Yeah.
I need you two to work your way up to the top rope. And they were like, for what? We're big men. I said, because I want you to suplex the other son of a bitch off the top rope. Okay. So here they go, working their way up to the top rope. And so I'm getting to where I can work over to him. I'm like, hey, come on, guys. Y'all need to get down and do a little count. He hits him a couple times. I like, hey, you know, and I'm kind of get his attention. I'm moving them around. I'm getting them situated, helping pushing them up. And nobody's even realizing what we're doing at this point in time. These are some big guys.
Yeah.
Okay. And they have a little problem sometimes getting their knees to work at the second rope trying to get up on it. That's the reason why you don't never see them there.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of course.
So they get up and finally get up to the top rope. And I'm like, hallelujah, gentlemen. Let's have some fun. And they were like, what? I said, go. And so as they started to fall out into the center of the ring, I started walking with them as they were falling. Well, as soon as they hit the center of the ring, I just gave myself just a little push.
Yeah.
And when I did, I went about 10 feet above the top rope.
Oh, shit.
And so when I got up there to where I could relax and just motion myself, I just laid down. And then boom, I hit my bump, dude. And Bruno was like, dude, I'm going to give you two numbers to call. He said, that is the most spectacular fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. He said, I appreciate what you did. He said, I'll be seeing you down the road. Well, a few months later, we wind up in Boonville, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Okay, we're working at EPW. Bruno wants to work a hair versus retirement match.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. And so I'm like, well, Bruno, you don't have any hair, brother. So explain to me how we're going to work this, you know?
Yeah.
And he's this went on for a couple of weeks, and then something happened. Bruno, it was getting close to Mania. And Bruno just, I can't make it. He said, we'll do it again sometime down the road. He said, because I really want to do this angle with you.
Yeah.
He said, I think it would be just awesome. He said, you know, two old school guys getting in there. And guys, that was somebody that y'all didn't mention that I figured that y'all would mention was Bruno Lauer as a referee.
Downtown Bruno.
Downtown
Bruno,
baby.
sure. Yeah.
Hey, mama says it just bees that way sometimes.
Well, here's a question for you. And then I want Mikey Messier to chime in here. And then we'll go to Amelia because I got some female-related questions. Has a promoter ever come up to you, Joey, because of the fact that you're in the ring all the time? Has a promoter ever come up to you and said, hey, Joey, I want you to take a look at some guys with me. I'm scouting some guys that I'm thinking about hiring. Okay, so tell me.
Okay, so like, all right, so the Bumps and Bruises Pro Wrestling Academy that Bobby Horn runs. Okay, that's Sir Mo from Men on a Mission out of WWF.
Give them a plug. I want you to give them a plug.
Yes, that's the OIWA organization as a whole. That's SOAR Championship Wrestling. That's Chaotic Kingdom Championship Wrestling. That's Southern Extreme Championship Wrestling and South Central Championship Wrestling. Okay, that is the group that I run with mostly. I do Ozark Mountain on my off weeks where I'm not booked with those guys. Okay, so they're like, hey man,
all the time then.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yes, we do all the time.
You.
Yeah, we stay busy. I mean, we've got 1 to 2 shows pretty much every week in a month.
Wow.
You know, yes. Beautiful. I mean, and Bobby's wanting to get to where he's running 8. So, I mean, and that's probably fixing to happen as soon as COVID can get out of the way. Bobby's going to unleash the OIWA organization on the world. And I promise you, there's guys coming out of there like Dante Smiley, who's doing AEW Dark. Charles Lane, Xander Gold, who is doing AEW Dark. Dean Fleming, who is doing AEW Dark.
Beautiful.
Savion, who just did his debut at WWE.
I know who
Savion
is.
Truitt. Yes, he just debuted there. All these guys are coming out of this camp. Okay, there's so many of them that's coming out of this camp. DJ Brown Jr. Okay, Memphis. His dad, Danny Brown, a Memphis classic. Okay,
of course,
right up
downtown
there.
Danny Brown.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so all these guys. You know, this is the area where I was raised, grew up in, trained in. The southern, not so strong style, Mississippi, Alabama to Texas, Nevada strong style.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's kind of in the mix. You know what I mean? So I mean, they'll ask me, "Hey, I've got a couple of guys I've been working. Would you happen to come in for me tonight, man, for a couple hours, and let's see what they got?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come in." And then they're like, "Well, who are you?" I'm like, "I'm your official for the night." I said, "We're going to see what you can actually do.
See what you got."
And they're like, "How does that work?" I said, "Don't call a spot in the back. You listen to me."
And Mike Messier, you and I, that's a music to our ears, brother. Mikey, why is it a good idea? I'm gonna go to you on this one. Why is it a good idea, Mikey, for a guy that's a ref to partner with the promoter and feel guys out? What's the advantage for the promoter to have a ref eyeball guys for you?
Well, my opinion would just be that who's got a better view of the matches than the referee? He's right there in the ring.
Exactly.
You know, it's a simple thing where an attuned ref like Joey and like the people that we've mentioned. I also want to put out, shout outs to Bill Alfonso and Teddy Long.
Yes.
Two great refs who went on to become great men.
I have a list. We're going to go through the list too.
Yeah. But to answer your question, like I said, it's just if you're right in the middle of the action and you're that third man in the ring, then that's so empowering. You have the best view in the house.
You see who's messing up first and who's covering up first.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike Messier, you mentioned a couple of names, so let's talk about them.
Sure.
It's, of course, Amelia's favorite, Bronco Lubin. Bronco Lubin. The second name on my list. Here, this is my list. Here you go. Bronco Lubitsch, Bill Alfonso, Randy Anderson, Scott Armstrong, Jason Ayers, Jessica Carr. She was the first full-time female ref in WWE. Mike Chioda, John Cone, Dangerous Danny Davis, Jack Doan, Aubrey Edwards, Dan Engler, Tiger Hattori, Dave Hebner, Earl Hebner, Joe Higuchi, Brian Hildebrand, Jimmy Corderas, Theodore Long, Joey Morella, the late Joey Morella, Shane McMahon, Nick Patrick, Charles Robinson, Billy Silverman. There's one for you, Joey.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. I love me some Billy Silverman, buddy. Real talk.
Tim White, Drake Wirtz, Tommy Young, Sputnik Monroe, and Jersey Joe Walcott.
Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Jersey Joe Walcott. Now he was another guy, Mike Messier. Jersey Joe Walcott was a professional fighter, a boxer. In fact, he was two-time world champion. But he found a niche as a wrestling referee. Though he never wrestled, he was a pro fighter for a living.
Right.
But he found a hell of a niche as a referee, and they call on him a lot, and not small matches either, Mikey. You're talking about Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor, Bruno Sammartino and Stan Stasiak. Oh my God, who else? Just a plethora of championship bouts this man refereed. Joey, do you know who I'm talking about? Jersey Joe?
I've heard that name several
Mhm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot of guys talk about that guy, you know, and they
How about
actually is a
Sputnik
good
Monroe?
referee.
Sputnik Monroe's a guy from Texas who became quite famous in Tennessee, as a matter of fact.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
he did.
Interestingly enough, Sputnik Monroe is the only professional wrestler in the Country Music Hall of Fame.
That's
Interesting.
awesome.
Country Music Hall of Fame. You hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He is, and not only is he a champion wrestler and referee, by the way, but he's also a 6-time Grammy Award-winning country music writer. You
That's
can't
cool.
make this shit up.
That is freaking cool, man.
Can't make this shit up.
That's cool.
He was also an anti-segregation advocate in the
Yes.
wrestling world too.
Because of Sputnik Monroe, we have a interracial audience now.
Well, and
Yeah.
he around. He was big.
He's, if you don't let the then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what it was. He goes, they can't this.
Yes.
You watched guys like the Von Erichs and
Mm-hmm.
you know them sissy boys. You know them Von Erichs wrestle and against my guys, the Freebirds,
Oh, yes.
who were real men.
Uh-huh.
So tell me about some of your favorite referee moments watching matches in Texas, along with your pretty boy Gino.
Of course. Who else, right? Well, well, David Manning, of course, everybody knew that he hated Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams, and it was always for the Von Erichs. I'm sorry to say, but that is the truth. And my thing, Joey, is like, how would you not know if they had something in their trunks? Of course, you would know ahead of time, right?
You would.
Yeah, and you just kind of pretend
Joey,
that they
can you
didn't have it,
expand
right?
upon that?
Sir?
Joey, can you expand on that?
Yes. All right. So whenever you're fixing to, and I'm fixing to break kayfabe for you because this is what
Mhm.
we're told not to do. Well,
Mhm.
kayfabe's pretty much dead. Vince took care of that. Y'all
Yeah,
remember that?
absolutely.
Vince took care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in the back, whenever you are discussing, and that's usually when I tell the guys, man, I need to know the opening and the end of the match. If I'm
Mhm.
involved in the open of it, I mean, let's get it going. Everything else
Mhm.
to work, I'll take care of my part. I got you.
Yep.
Mhm.
How's
Okay.
it going to open and who's going over?
Yeah. All right. Well,
Mhm.
see, I'm gonna pull this chain out of my trunks. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you iterate on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and you see sometimes a guy be like, okay, I want you to find these two chains. I'm going to have them in my tights right here and one in my knee pad.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you start giving the pat down, which is what an official is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay. They're supposed to pat the guys down. This is not a boxing match, gentlemen. All right.
Exactly.
We are in an actual combat sport event.
Mhm.
Okay. Regardless of how it plays out at the end,
Mhm.
regardless of anything there, that ring will mess you up.
Yes, it will.
Okay. It will kill you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has. many
Get
people.
that. Yes. Get that straight right off the bat. Anything else is twisted.
Mhm.
Okay. When we discuss our matches in the back, and again, I iterated earlier, if an official is good, he's going to make sure that he's listening.
Mhm.
He's going to make sure that he's hearing different things that are going on because referees just don't have one job. Okay.
See, this is something that Mike Messier and I have talked about ad nauseum on previous episodes. One of the things that Mikey and I believe, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Mikey, because I know how you feel on this.
Mhm.
We have always believed, and I say this collectively, we have always believed that from the opening bell to the closing bell, there's an open and there's a finish. But whatever happens in between A and Z is how you get from A to Z.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And Mikey and I have a problem with the term fake or phony.
I do too.
I have a problem with the term predetermined.
Mhm.
Okay. I like to say, and again, I'm old school. So I like to say getting over and being over. And
Mhm.
Mike and I have talked about the difference between getting over and being over. You know, getting over is how you get yourself over to the crowd. Being over is how you win a match. And that's the difference. So I'm going to, you know what, Mikey, I've talked enough on this. I want you to jump in here with Joey and
Sure.
talk about what we're talking, follow up on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, Joey, trust me, I'm really fascinated by this wrestling company that you're talking about tonight. It sounds like they've got some great people. I've go to a lot of the AEW dark tapings because I live here in Jacksonville, so I've gone to about 40 AEW shows in the last year and a half, and it's a lot of fun. But one thing about the current, and this is me asking as an outsider to an insider, but Joey, one thing that I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the 80s or maybe even the early 90s, the wrestlers would call the spot, so to speak, call the match in the ring. And these days, when and I love AEW, I'm a big AEW enthusiast, but when I watch AEW, and there was a match, Leela Hirsch versus Thunder Rosa last night,
Yeah.
and they're obviously trying to go through the spots that they worked out in the dressing room, and they're failing miserably because the height difference or something was off with those two ladies last night. It's not just ladies matches, a lot of men's matches too.
Yep.
But certain wrestlers that even I have a lot of respect for, Young Bucks, for instance, you can tell that the wrestlers are in the dressing room working out their little spots, especially with these multiple man matches, 5-on-5, 3-on-3. To me, I'd rather watch Ricky Steamboat and Tully Blanchard at Starrcade 84 when they're calling the thing in the ring and it looks like an athletic contest. And I don't know, Joey, is there any way as a referee in your position, working behind the scenes, can you influence these wrestlers to just be better in the ring generals and not dressing room choreographers?
I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that one, Mike.
Most definitely do, because they're that.
I hope everybody heard that. You guys, you armchair quarterbacks watching this on Facebook and YouTube. Take note of Mike Messier.
All right,
He
so
will eviscerate you in a video if you don't agree with him.
Mike, you hit that so hard on the head, dude. It's not even funny.
Beautifully.
Okay, that was so beautiful as to determine and pick that out and place it down and tell it like it is, brother.
Yes.
Like it is. Okay. And dude, I appreciate that, because if I had even the young guys coming in that had that same mentality, especially thinking in this business with that mentality, they would get a lot further, a lot quicker.
And less bumps, because the less high flying stuff that you do, the less Hurricane Ranas or the less suicide Tipas or whatever, Tope Suicidas. I mean, the less of those you do, and the more working the arm, working the old fashioned Kamala neck pinch. I mean, those old fashioned moves. And
you don't see that no more.
Yeah.
No.
I want people to think about something.
They all want to be Shawn Michaels. They don't want to be Bret Hart.
Yeah. When was the last time you seen the Claw?
Right.
Well, here you go. I'm going to let the old guy jump in for a second, Mikey. Listen to this one, Joey. I'm 63 years old. Okay. I grew up in a time where wrestlers were not allowed. Not only could they not use the ropes, they weren't allowed to use the ropes.
Yes.
Right.
And if they tried to, they'd probably kill themselves anyway.
Right.
Because the ropes were so loose and so shaky, you could not climb them.
Right.
You had to wrestle chain style on the mat.
That's how you can tell how wrestling has evolved from day one to where we are now.
When a guy got thrown into the ropes, Mike Messier, those ropes used to shake violently. That was part of the match. The movement of the ring was part of the match. You never saw Gorgeous George jump off the top of a rope, ever.
Right.
You never saw Bruno do it, or, God forbid, Haystacks Calhoun, if he could get up to him, you know? But they didn't need to, is the point I'm trying to make. Now, but a guy that could never did. A guy like Pat O'Connor, Buddy Rogers, Pampero Firpo. These
Right.
guys were rough, tough guys.
Right.
Could they have used the ropes? They could have.
Right.
They take their life in their hands if they tried it, though. You know, they might lose their life, or the worst, they might lose their job. You know.
Well, I want to, Angelo, could I ask everybody
Yeah,
something?
Sure.
It's kind of a point and then a question, maybe for Joey and for everybody. But
Sure,
you know,
Mikey.
a federation that I loved at the time, and I still hold in high regard, was the real ECW, the original, you know, say 1995 to 1999 ECW, Raven, Tommy Dreamer, etc., Sabu.
Oh God.
I'm not taking anything away from those guys, but in that promotion with the hardcore elements and the excess of violence and blood and unsafe scaffold matches with Brian Lee, lucky he didn't get killed in that Tommy Dreamer scaffold.
Oh God, yeah, please.
Yes.
But Joey, did ECW, as great and as fun as it was as a fan, we saw so many of these guys have passed away before their time. The Pitbull, so many other guys have passed away. I got to think that the excess of ECW, the painkillers these guys must have taken, to me, it's almost like ECW burned everybody out. And ever since Impact Wrestling or TNA and Ring of Honor, they've all tried to kind of put a variation on the spin of ECW. And even modern AEW with Chris Jericho and the Nick Gage with the pizza cutter on his face.
Yeah, that's
Did
pretty crazy.
did ECW take us down a path that we haven't gotten over, Joey? Are we still going down that tunnel?
I don't think we're going down that tunnel. You know why? Because we don't see it anymore. If you see it, it's going to be on the independent scene. Okay, if you say, okay, let's take the AEW pay-per-view. Okay, there was a little bit of blood shown. Okay, how violent was the blood? Was it done with a freaking cheese grater?
Right.
No.
Right.
Okay. All right. So the path that was taken by ECW was bringing a new style, a new era, and a new fan into the picture. Okay. They promoted blood, guts, and gore. Okay?
I'll tell you what else they did, Joey and Mikey, that a lot of people seem to forget if they remember at all. Bill Alfonso, whose name has come up a couple times on the show, before he entered ECW, let us not forget, Bill Alfonso was a established traditional corporate referee. He's the guy who refereed Bruiser Brody and Lex Luger, by the way. In that famous match where Lex Luger literally ran away from Bruiser Brody, climbed out of the cage and ran back to the dressing room. That was a shoot, by the way. Because Barbara Goodish, Bruiser Brody's wife, is a dear friend of mine. She's been on the show many times. And she said Frank talks about that. He said all he had to do was come to me. I would have talked to the kid. But he literally ran away. And Bill Alfonso was responsible for maintaining decorum in that match. How do you do that with a guy like Bruiser and Lex Luger?
You got to get on that same level. You got to get on that same level.
Oh, no, right?
He did it exceedingly well.
Yes.
You know, he's a guy that's been around a long time, but to Mike Messier's point, and a very good point, Mikey, Bill Alfonso was the first referee in ECW that became a character. And not only was he a character, but when he became that character, he ceased to be a referee.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't remember. Bill Alfonso never became a referee after he became the character. And that's something we have to give kudos and applause and say, well done, Bill. Because he didn't insult anybody's intelligence. He became that character. He stuck to it. He was a belligerent, arrogant asshole of a person, like a manager type. And that's what he did, and he did it well. And he was exceedingly well as a referee. Go ahead, Joe. You can tell me shut up now.
No, you're fine, brother. I mean, I love hearing some of the information that I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've heard a lot of stories, a lot of tales, you know,
Well,
from
brother,
a lot of different guys.
I am very fortunate. Mikey knows this. I am very fortunate to have relatives in the wrestling business when I was a young man.
Okay.
And one of my relatives was a heavy hitter in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation that became WWE.
Right.
I worked in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. It was my first wrestling job. And I've owned my own wrestling company, as well as worked for the NWA and other prestigious organizations here on the East Coast. So I've been around a long time. Those are my credentials. And people who want my credentials are easy to find. Just you know where to find me. I'm everywhere.
There you go.
But here's the thing, though, and to Mike Messier's point, you know, I forgot, Mikey, where we're going with this.
Well, the
shit!
ECW
Damn it. I just gave
thing
myself a
was-
brain
I was
fart.
asking if
Yeah, he was asking about
ECW
ECW, their brand, you know,
Mhm.
how it evolved. You know,
Oh, okay,
and,
Mikey,
and
go ahead.
and I get what Mikey's saying because I know where he's going with his point. ECW was a brand that pulled a whole different genre, a whole different generation
That's it.
into
yes.
their product.
Mhm.
Okay, and
Mhm.
for ECW to do that and make it was what was really mind-boggling. So
Yeah.
you're going to really have to give your hats off to the booker on that one.
Well,
Okay.
but
Sure.
think about something, Joey and Mikey and Amelia, because
Mhm.
you're the young pup here.
Mhm.
But think about this. What was ECW? What was it?
What was
It
their
was a
name?
throwback to old school wrestling.
Yes,
Yep.
it was.
That's what it was. It was a
Yep.
Yeah.
throwback to old school wrestling. And who was the booker? Eddie Gilbert,
Heyman.
Paul
Mhm.
Heyman.
Yes.
Okay. Think about that. That's old school, brother.
That's old school as you're
People
going to
don't
get.
remember. Paul
No.
Heyman was Paulie Dangerously.
Mhm. They
People
wanted to
forget
bring back
that.
it. They wanted to bring back wrestling the way it used to be.
Exactly.
And the thing for Paul Heyman is he still believes and dreams and changes and trains that way. He
Yes.
still coaches that
Yes.
way. And it still needs to be brought to the
Yes, it
forefront
does.
that way.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It's
it
a
does.
mindset, and that's what I want
Yes.
to implore people to understand this.
Mhm.
Wrestling is a mindset. The
Mhm.
role of the referee is part of that mindset.
Mhm.
Understand that the referee you're watching is a part of that match. He's not
Yes.
just the third guy in the ring.
Yeah.
He's the guy making it happen.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, the referee is the catalyst for what's happening.
Mhm.
Well, you know, you say catalyst for what's happening.
I've got
And-
a question for Mike Messier. This is from Jimmy Thunder from Down Under. Would you call ECW hot shotting?
Well, they did a lot of hot shotting. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, they did some great storytelling. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not pointing the finger or anything against ECW. I went to a lot of ECW shows, so I loved the promotion. But my point is just, did they burn out things? And in ECW, you didn't have a lot of disqualifications or rope breaks.
Interesting.
I mean, the referees.
Mhm.
My buddy Paul Richard was an ECW referee. He was a great referee, but they really didn't have a lot of power for the referees ECW, because if you remember, there wasn't over the top rope DQs or anything like
Right.
that in ECW. Almost every single match was an anything goes match. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yep.
So my point is just the excess of ECW. I understand it was a tip of the hat to Mid-South and a tip of the hat to Memphis with the fireballs and everything. To me, if you look at how many guys passed away at a young age that had ECW on their resume, how many guys, New Jack getting hurt all the time,
Mhm.
there was a certain over the top aggressiveness of it, which was great as a fan, but for the actual wrestlers, maybe not so much, because a lot of them didn't
Yeah.
live very much longer after that. It's
Mike,
unfortunate, but it's true.
It's true that you touched up on that, because if you go back and you look, how many wrestlers have passed away that went through ECW?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what would you think that the scenario would be as far as a pro wrestler going through a extreme company with a very, very fluent old school background compared to a more watered down product as far as
I'll tell you what the
WWE?
difference was, Joey, because I can answer that question. I'll
Go
tell you
for
what
it,
the
baby.
difference was and why we lost so many people at ECW. There were a crew of bright, talented, energetic young guys who got too rich, too famous, too quick, and they couldn't handle it. A lot of those guys drank themselves to death. A lot of them drugged themselves to death. And in
That's
the
the
case
nail
of
right there.
and in the case of my late friend Jerome Young, New Jack, who stayed with me in my house here for 2 days, Jerome, and I'll never call him New Jack, I'll always call him Jerome. Jerome was a tortured soul who lived the gimmick of New Jack to the point where he forgot literally how to be nice to people. Okay? I took care of that man for 2 days here in my home. I fed him the best food and gave him the best wine. 3 days later, he told me to go fuck myself.
What?
And why? Because he didn't know how to say thank you.
Okay.
He had to live the gimmick. And my heart goes out to his wife in North Carolina. And my heart goes out to his family because they lost a good guy. When Jerome and I were just talking about stuff, he could carry on a conversation, but he would catch himself, Mike Messier. He'd catch himself having a good conversation with somebody, and then he'd flip gears and New Jack would come out. It's
He had to
almost
stay
like he
true to
couldn't,
the character.
yeah, it's like he couldn't help himself.
So
Right.
let's put it into a little bit more easy term of perspective here.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
The drinking, okay. Those guys would pretty much drink themselves to death before a show, right?
Absolutely.
And then they would go out there and there would be 20,000 screaming ECW
Crazy
fans
people.
that wanted, the biggest impact that they could get that night. And that's what they paid to come see. Okay. And that was what ECW was promoting at the time, was blood,
Joey,
guts,
I'm going
heart.
to prove your point to you. Joey, I am going to prove your point to you. And Mike Messier can vouch for this because he knows the incident I'm talking about. It happened in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Philadelphia Spectrum. It was a WWE Monday Night Raw. It was a televised show. Okay? The show had already started. About 10 minutes into the show, unscripted, unrehearsed, unplanned, about 10 guys from ECW came to the show together. They had tickets. They bought tickets. They weren't part of an angle. When those guys walked into that Spectrum, 25,000 people went nuts.
Yep.
Those 10 guys popped that building of 25,000 people.
And that's
And
where
you
I was
can
going
see
with my
it.
point.
You can see it in living color on YouTube because the
Yep.
clip is still there.
Regardless of
That's proving your
anything
point,
else.
Joey.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
seen
And
that
that's
shit
definitely-
happen.
Yes. And
All right,
that,
that's
the
what happened.
reason why that happened like that is because those guys not only drank themselves on the ground, but went out there in front of 25,000 fans and put it all on the line. They
Absolutely.
didn't care about anything else. Those guys peeled themselves to death and still went out there and 25,000 people and put it all on the line.
Bro, I seen
Every
that
bit of
happen,
it.
man.
They didn't care about their bodies. That was a
I saw
product
that
that
for real.
that was a product that Paul Heyman pushed hard on.
Yeah.
Okay. And he said, if you want to be extreme, you have to live extreme.
Yeah.
In this business, we're living the extreme. Okay,
Yeah,
and that's how they
yeah,
built
yeah.
ECW.
Yes.
Speaking of extreme, I'm going to bring Melia in here.
Mhm.
Speaking of extreme, I bring you in, right? Probably the least extreme person here. Let's talk about it because I interrupted you earlier, and I hardly ever do that. You know that.
Yeah, right.
And why are you laughing, Mike Messier? Pleads the fifth. He knows it.
Because
So
he
let
knows
me
you're lying.
when I interrupted you before. So let's talk about you because you watched wrestling in Texas. You grew up there. By the way, we got a shout out from Boston Spencer. He's a Northeast guy. He's a Boston guy living here in Texas. Boston, how you doing, brother? I miss you being on the show here. I want
What's
you
up,
back home.
Boston?
Oh.
Whoop,
Sorry about
throw
that.
me on the floor. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Jesus. So talk to me, Amelia.
Uh-huh.
Talk to me about watching wrestling in Texas and
Uh-huh.
the role of the referee when you were a
Yes.
young kid growing
Uh-huh.
up watching. By the way, I should tell everybody, she's the this is legit too. This is straight shoot. She's the president of the Gino Hernandez fan club, and give them the name of your your group, then.
Well, it's me and Courtney. We're admins of the Gino Forever.
Gino
It's a
Forever.
yeah, it's a Facebook page.
All right, and that's called Gino Forever, and it's Amelia and Courtney. They run the group. So go ahead. So tell me about growing up watching. You're 11, 12 years old. You're watching your guy Gino, and you're watching these referees. And was it clear to you as a 10, 11-year-old kid at the time? Is that when you started watching wrestling, or was it you were younger?
My
I'm
dad
trying to
would take
remember what you
me.
said to me before. You were younger?
Actually, my dad would take me when I was 4 years old. I was letting.
Okay, I got
Yeah, I
you.
was 4.
So
Yeah.
did you wonder who that other person in the ring was besides these two guys beating each other up?
Oh no, my dad would explain that it's the referee and this is what he was doing because we would watch it on TV. Because I'd say, "Daddy, who is that? What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm watching wrestling." I said, "Really? What are they doing?" He goes, "Oh, they're just wrestling." So I just sit there and watch because that's pretty much I was on TV, just 3 channels back then, and of course, being there was no remote and I was a channel changer, so little kid, yeah.
Sure.
I said, "Well, what is this?" He goes, "Well, we're just watching this." I'm like, "Okay." So we just sit there and watch, and I'm like, "Oh, that looks interesting." So from then on, I was hooked.
And so when you became aware of what the referee was and who he was, did that change your perspective on what you were watching?
Yeah, because I was like, why is he doing that? Why is he being mean to that other guy? He's like, well, that's the bad guy. I said, what do you mean that's the bad guy? He goes, yeah, the heel. I said, what do you mean heel? That's what we got on our foot. So my dad had to explain that, little kid. And he's like, well, why is he being mean to that person? He goes, because he's supposed to be the good guy and that's the bad guy. And I was like, well, okay. So he explained that to me finally. And he says, yeah, he wins the belt. He's the champion and he's supposed to take the belt from him. And so I said, okay, Southwest Championship Wrestling. Do they come here? He goes, yes, every other Tuesday. And I said, great. I said, who's that guy over there? He's like, well, he would explain to me that's Luthez because I remember watching Luthez, and that's Wahoo McDaniel, my dad's favorite wrestler. So we'd watch him, and then I guess I would remember I was 4 years old, and it was so exciting hearing these people scream, and I'm like, oh my God, that's loud, but I got used to it. And so ever since then, we'd watch it forever. And then my grandmother would come to the matches with us sometime. And like I said, we'd watch her and I was like, okay, where's my grandmother? And she'd be down there yelling at the referee. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to get my grandmother out of here before we get kicked out of here. But the referee would love it because the fans would love it. Say, come on, yeah, listen to this lady, stop being mean to him. But the referee would love it because he's like, come on, you're getting the crowd going, come on. So that's and then finally we would be there every other Tuesday, and then I got to know this guy, and I was like, who in the world is that? My first crush. And I was like, that's Gino Hernandez. He's a bad guy. You're not supposed to like him. I was like, well, why not? He's cute. My dad's like, no, he's a mean guy. I said, I don't care. He's cute. So we got to watch him.
You can't talk shit about Gino. She'll rip your throat out.
Yeah. And if you say David Manning's a good referee,
I'll tell you what, it's been a very spirited night.
Yes.
It really, really has been a hell of a night. Mike Messier, yeah. Good night for you.
It was fun.
Oh.
I had one final name that we didn't get to, but Gilberto Roman was the old WWF
Oh my God,
ref.
Gilberto Roman.
Mm-hmm.
He's the
Did not
only
know what he was
referee in
doing.
this bunch that's actually built like me, short
Yeah,
and fat.
But he was always
He's
getting
built.
picked on.
You know who he always reminded me of? You're going to laugh when I tell you. I swear to God, Gilberto Roman reminded me of Fred Flintstone. He did. He looked like Fred Flintstone. Go look at him. He even had the 5 o'clock
memorable.
shadow
The
going.
5 o'clock shadow going right here.
He did. He had
Talking
the 5 o'clock shadow. Looked like he hadn't shaved in about 4 days. You know?
Yeah.
And he was about this big, and he was as tall as he was wide. You know?
He was a
Probably like what
character.
they used to call a 4x4.
Right.
4 foot high and 4 foot wide.
He's falling
Joey
on the
knows what
chair.
I'm talking about. You know what I'm
He's falling
talking
on the
about.
chair.
That's what they call fat women in Tennessee, 4x4s.
Boom.
Well, I'll tell you what, MikeMessier.com. What do you got to promote, brother? Promote away.
Well,
Yes.
my book, A Distance from Avalon, just got released in hardcover, so you can find that on Amazon. And I'm currently working on another book, Fighter Play Basketball, and MikeMessier.com, AvaloniaFestival.com for filmmakers. I run a film festival. And beyond that, subscribe to Mike
And I
Messier.
have that book, by the way. It's a good book. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. And subscribe to Mike Messier.
100% it.
Yeah, no problem. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. It has all my pro wrestling rants. I have some AEW clips I take with my phone. I do some, obviously it's my phone camera, so it's not the network coverage. It's just my own mic cam, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, angry wrestling fan. Still
And
angry,
do
but
you still, Mikey, you still have Man in the Camera Films Incorporated?
yeah, I still do. The last thing I filmed was Seduction of Distance, which was actually me acting in a monologue from the same book. So I filmed that in July of
And
21.
when does your film come out with Eric Roberts?
Mr. Birthday is out now. It's
It's
thank you for
out.
mentioning
Okay.
it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
You can see Mike Messier along with Academy Award nominee Eric Roberts in a film called Mr. Birthday. It's called Mr.
got it.
Birthday.
Yep, it's on
And
YouTube. streaming stuff.
and he has a lead part. It's a prominent part, right, Mikey?
Yeah, I play Hank. I play part of the team of the Happy Birthday group. We're a group of people that make birthday parties for kids that don't have any friends. Like if they're new to town or they're unpopular or they're getting picked on.
Aw.
The Happy
That's
Birthday
good.
Alliance of myself and a few others, we go in and we make a big party for everybody. And Eric Roberts is in the movie, and Jason London from Dazed and Confused, and my buddy
Yes.
Dan Hunter produced that and directed it. My friend David Gear was also a producer. So a lot of good times with that movie. It was fun.
And where is it? Is it streaming? Is it where
I
can we
think-
see it?
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you put in Mr. Birthday 2021, or you probably find it. I think it's $6.99 on YouTube.
Okay.
And then there's other pay outlets. If you just put Mr. Birthday 2021, Eric Roberts, it'll
Good.
come up.
Beautiful.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, referee Joey Lynn, promote away, brother.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you've ever wanted to become a pro wrestler, even thought about becoming a pro wrestler, 501 Bumps and Bruises, Sherwood, Arkansas, through the OIWA organization. 469 Bumps and Bruises, Dallas, Texas, Bobby Horn, under the OIWA organization. Southern Extreme, over in Forest City, Arkansas, under Danny Brown Jr., following also through the organization OIWA.
Give us
If you've
a
ever
phone
wanted to
number.
become a pro wrestler, I encourage you, if you want to really get in the game and be part of the game, seek out somebody that's credible. Seek out somebody that has credentials.
Joey, give us
Talk
a
with-
phone number on the place.
Phone numbers, I tell you what, I'll give you my personal phone number, and you can reach me, and I'll
Go
get
for it.
you in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with.
Go
All
for
right,
it.
that's area code 501-529-7199. That's
That's a brave man putting
501
his phone number out for the world.
529 7199. If you want to become a
There you
pro
go.
wrestler, if you want to get out there and get it done, you want to be that, be about that, get in contact with me. I'll get you where you need to go.
And Amelia,
Yes,
living
sir.
La Vida Loca Chapman. Where can people reach you? How do they get your social? And when will they see you again?
Well, there it is, Amelia Valerio Chapman on Facebook or aachap70@gmail.com.
Fabulous. And where can they see you?
Right here with you every Tuesday and Thursday night.
There you go. She picked up on the cue. I love it. I love it.
I have one more question for
Beautiful.
Joey, real quick. You know how you said that you were training, referees and everything. How long does it take you to train them, and you think that they're good to be in the ring as a ref by themselves?
Okay, so I don't know for as far as the class that comes in nowadays, as far as training them wise, because everybody's different.
Mhm.
Okay, some guys will pick up on it like that 6 to 8 months, throw
Mhm.
them in the ring. Let's do it. Let's see what you got.
Okay.
Okay, and then you have some guys that it may take a year, it may
Okay.
take 2 years.
Right.
I mean, it just depends on the person,
Mhm.
because you never know what somebody's dealing with, right? They could have some
Mhm.
kind of
That's true.
anxiety about being out in front of a crowd of people, but they want
Yeah.
to be a pro wrestler. They want to try to be about that part, whatever
Mhm.
part it is that they're trying to do in pro wrestling. You
Mhm.
never
Yes,
know.
sir.
So some folks, it just depends on
Mhm.
where they're at. I trained for 2.5 years before I ever got my foot inside a ring for a
Mhm.
match. Okay, I was started out on the ground.
Mhm.
That's where I started.
That's
Awesome.
where you're supposed to start.
Mhm.
And
I'm
work
just
your
saying,
way up.
that's where I started. Once I got to where I was working with Robert Gibson at All Pro Championship Wrestling, where he
Mhm.
could mentor on me for about a year and a half,
Yeah.
I was really skeptical if it's really what I should be doing,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because I didn't know if I was doing it right. Nobody trained me, right?
Yeah.
I was trained to wrestle. I
Mhm.
wasn't trained to referee.
Mhm.
Some guy said, "Hey, man, I need a referee.
Yeah.
Where's your shirt at?"
Mhm.
Exactly.
Okay,
Give me the shirt.
Mhm.
give
Yep.
me a shirt. Now I got it.
Mhm.
I'll do what I
This
can.
was a hell of a show. I'll tell you what.
Mhm.
This is Amelia. It's the first 2-hour episode we've ever done.
Absolutely. Right. And Mikey,
Beautiful.
That is awesome.
I'll
what
tell you
Mike?
what, gentlemen, we are going to reconvene at some
Uh-huh.
point in the future.
Uh-huh.
This
Yes,
panel
most
will
definitely.
be back because we had a lot of fun, and I want to do it again.
I
Yes,
was gonna ask
sir.
Mikey
By
real
all
quick.
means.
And I want my crew to stay with me when we go off
Okay.
the air, because don't go nowhere yet.
Okay.
But on
Amelia's
behalf
gonna
of
question
Amelia,
me.
living La Vida Loca Chapman, on behalf of referee Joey Lynn and all the extreme craziness he's involved in, MikeMessier.com, my friend Mike Messier. I am the Mad Dog, Mad Dog DeCipio for Wrestling with the Future. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.